Nova Cirrus hung in the sky like a chandelier someone forgot to take down after a particularly extravagant party. 2 million people lived their lives suspended 30,000 feet above a dying Earth, powered by the only thing still worth a damn in this world, storm energy. And the atmospheric guild made sure nobody forgot who controlled the faucet. Vega Reed knew exactly how the game was played. She'd been on both sides of it. "You can't be serious," Dexter Finn said. His lanky frame hunched over a glowing tablet. His fingers twitched nervously across the screen, a habit that always intensified when he was about to have a panic attack. "Breaking into Guild HQ? We might as well throw ourselves off the edge of the city and save them the trouble." Vega propped her boots on the table, tilting her chair back at a precarious angle. "Come on, Dex. Where's your sense of adventure?" "I left it behind with my sense of self-preservation," he muttered. "The last guy who tried to mess with guild property ended up doing an unscheduled skydiving lesson. Without a parachute. That's why we're not going to get caught." Vega tapped her temple. "We've got something they don't have. A death wish." Inside knowledge came a crisp voice from the doorway. Both turned to see a woman with steel-gray eyes and matching streaks in her dark hair. Her posture was military straight despite the casual clothes that couldn't quite hide the guild scientist she'd once been. "Nora Blackwell," the woman introduced herself. "Former lead researcher. Guild Atmospheric Sciences Division." Dexter whistled low. "Former? Nobody leaves the guild. There's a first time for everything," Nora replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Especially when you discover your bosses are using your research to ensure half the planet stays in the Dark Ages." Vega swung her feet down from the table. "So you'll help us?" "I'll help you get to the core," Nora clarified. "What you do with it after that is your business. But you should know, it's not just locked behind security systems and armed guards. What else? The core has developed consciousness. The guild has been feeding it data for years, teaching it to protect itself. It controls the weather around the facility as a defense mechanism." Dexter groaned. "Great. We're not just robbing the most powerful organization in the sky. We're robbing a weather god." A low chuckle from the window made them all jump. A man with bronze skin and ice-blue eyes perched on the windowsill like he'd been there all along. "Not a god," the man said. "Just a very confused piece of technology that needs to be reminded it works for us. Not the other way around." Vega's hand moved instinctively to her sidearm. "And you are?" "Kai," he said simply. "I hear you need someone who speaks weather." Dexter snorted. "Speaks weather? Is that like speaking whale?" In response, Kai raised his hand. Outside the grimy apartment window, the ever-present clouds of Nova Cirrus parted in a perfect circle, revealing a startling patch of blue sky. "Something like that," Kai said with a wink. Vega grinned. "Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we have our crew." The guild headquarters rose from the center of Nova Cirrus like a middle finger to gravity, a spiraling tower of glass and metal that disappeared into the clouds above. At its heart sat the Skybreaker core, the pulsing energy source that kept the city aloft and powered. "Remember the plan," Vega murmured into her comm as they approached in maintenance uniforms. "We get in during shift change. Dexter hacks the secondary security grid. Nora guides us to the core chamber, and Kai keeps the weather defenses distracted." "And you?" Nora asked. "I'll be the charming decoy who gets captured if everything goes wrong," Vega replied cheerfully. Dexter's voice crackled through the comm. "That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be sunshine." Of course, nothing went according to plan. They made it as far as the 32nd floor before alarms started wailing. "What happened to the security override?" Vega hissed, ducking into a maintenance corridor as guards rushed past. "I don't know." Dexter's voice was an octave higher than usual. "It's like the system knew we were coming." "It did," Nora said grimly. "The core is scanning for intruders." As if on cue, the temperature in the corridor plummeted. Frost crystallized along the walls with unnatural speed. "We need to move," Kai warned. "Now." They ran, but the corridor ahead began to fill with fog so dense it was like running into a wall. Behind them, The frost had become ice spikes extending from the walls. Up! Vega shouted, pointing to a ventilation shaft. They scrambled through the tight space just as the corridor below turned into something resembling an Arctic death trap. Well, Vega panted as they crawled through the dusty shaft. I think we can safely say the direct approach isn't going to work. You think? Dexter's voice dripped with sarcasm. The core is more integrated with the guild's security than I realized, Nora admitted. They've evolved the system beyond anything we had when I was inside. So what now? Vega asked. Kai, who had been unnaturally quiet, finally spoke. We need to talk to it. Talk to what? The core. If it's truly conscious, it can be reasoned with, he said with a certainty that made Vega wonder just how familiar he was with the technology. Great, Dexter muttered. Our plan has gone from impossible heist to negotiate with sentient weather. Much better. Vega grinned despite their situation. At least it'll make a good story if we survive. Now let's get out of here before we become the guild's latest frozen decorations. The core isn't just a power source, Nora explained as they huddled in Vega's safe house the next day. It's a crystalline matrix that channels atmospheric energy. But its consciousness, what makes it more than just a battery, is housed in a separate crystal. A heart, Kai murmured. Or a brain, Dexter offered. Either way, Vega cut in. Is this separate piece something we can access without fighting through the guild's entire security force and their pet thunderstorms? Nora nodded. During the monthly recalibration, they have to temporarily disconnect the consciousness crystal from the main core to prevent feedback loops. That's our window. How long? Vega asked. 8 minutes. Dexter laughed hollowly. Oh, is that all? 8 minutes to break into the most secure facility in Nova Cirrus, steal their most prized possession, and get out. No problem. Actually, Kai said, we won't need to break in. They'll bring it to us. Everyone stared at him. The recalibration requires a precise atmospheric balance, he explained. They transport the crystal to an isolation chamber on the outer ring of the facility here. He pointed to Nora's schematics. That's still inside guild territory, Vega noted. Kai smiled. Yes, but unlike the core chamber, it has windows. The plan was elegant in its simplicity, which meant it had about 1,000 ways to go catastrophically wrong. Vega piloted her modified skiff through the cloud cover around Nova Cirrus, skimming just below detection range. In the passenger compartment, Dexter was a bundle of nerves, monitoring guild communications through a hijack channel. Nora checked her specialized equipment for the third time, while Kai sat in perfect meditation, eyes closed, attuned to atmospheric shifts imperceptible to the others. 2 minutes until recalibration, Dexter announced. Vega guided the skiff into position beneath the isolation chamber, a protruding glass bubble on the guild tower's 47th floor. 1 minute, Dexter continued. Guild transport is moving the crystal now. Ready, Kai? Vega asked. The storm speaker opened his eyes, now glowing with an unnatural blue light. The weather is listening. As if on cue, clouds began to form around their skiff, but unlike normal formations, these moved with purpose, spiraling upward to engulf the isolation chamber in a thick fog. Guild alarms blared, distant but audible even from their position. They've detected the atmospheric anomaly, Dexter reported. But they can't see through it, Nora added with satisfaction. Vega brought the skiff up, using the cloud cover as concealment. Through brief gaps in the fog, they could see guild technicians in the chamber, panicking as their carefully controlled environment went haywire. Now, Kai commanded. Vega fired the skiff's magnetic grapples. They punched through the isolation chamber's glass wall with surgical precision, narrowly missing the startled technicians inside. 30 seconds, Nora warned, attaching herself to the extraction cable. In one fluid motion, she zip-lined from the skiff into the chamber. The technicians reached for alarm buttons, but the sudden change in pressure as the chamber depressurized left them disoriented. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it, a crystal no larger than a fist pulsed with blue-white energy. I see it, Nora called through the comm. 20 seconds, Dexter counted down. Nora reached for the crystal but hesitated as her hand hovered above it. For a split second, Vega thought she saw patterns forming in the crystal's glow almost like a face. "Nora," she yelled into the comm, "what's happening?" "It's communicating," Nora whispered, her voice barely audible over the alarms. 10 seconds before guild security reaches the chamber, Dexter warned. "Grab it and go," Vega ordered. Nora snapped out of her trance and snatched the crystal, securing it in a specialized container at her belt. She turned to return to the skiff when the chamber door burst open. Guild security poured in, led by a figure Vega recognized even from a distance, Director Ellison, the head of the Atmospheric Guild himself. "Traitor," he bellowed at Nora. 5 seconds, Dexter whispered. "Time to go, Nora," Vega called, hand outstretched from the skiff's open door. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. Nora ran for the extraction cable, but Director Ellison drew a weapon. Kai's eyes flashed, and a violent gust of wind surged through the broken window, knocking the director's aim off just as he fired. The shot went wide, striking not Nora but the control panel beside her. Electrical systems exploded in a shower of sparks. Nora leapt, catching Vega's hand as the chamber behind her began to collapse. Vega pulled her aboard just as Kai released his hold on the surrounding weather. The fog dissipated, leaving them exposed. "Go, go, go!" Dexter shouted unnecessarily. Vega didn't need to be told twice. She gunned the skiff's engines, diving beneath the city's floating landmass where guild pursuit ships would have trouble following. "Did we get it?" she asked, not daring to look back. In answer, Nora held up the container. Inside, the crystal pulsed rhythmically like a heartbeat. "We got it," she confirmed. "But there's something you should know. Can it wait until we're not being chased by the most powerful organization in the sky?" Dexter asked plaintively. A blast of energy sizzled past the skiff, answering his question. "Guild pursuit ships," Vega announced. "Hang on." She took the skiff into a steep dive, plunging through the cloud layer. The city disappeared above them, and for the first time, the crew got a clear view of the ground below, a wasteland of abandoned cities and brown vegetation, the world that Nova Cirrus had left behind. "They're still on us," Dexter reported, watching the radar. "Not for long," Kai said. His eyes glowed once more, and behind them, storm clouds gathered with unnatural speed, forming a wall between their skiff and the pursuers. Lightning crackled within the clouds, striking one of the guild ships. It spiraled out of control, forcing the others to break off pursuit. "That should buy us some time," Kai said, his voice strained from the effort. As they flew toward the rendezvous point, Nora finally opened the container and carefully examined the crystal. "What the director doesn't know," she said, "is that this isn't the only control crystal. I created a backup years ago, hidden within the core's programming. Right now, the core is running on that backup." "So what did we steal?" Vega asked. "We stole its ability to obey the guild without question," Nora replied. "Without this crystal, the core can still function, but the guild can't force it to restrict energy distribution. For the first time in decades, power will flow equally to everyone, including the ground." Dexter looked out at the wasteland below. "You mean all those people down there?" "We'll have power again," Nora confirmed. "The guild's monopoly ends today." "They'll come after us," Vega noted. "Let them try," Kai said with a smile. "I think they'll find the weather no longer cooperates with their plans." As if in response, the crystal in Nora's hands pulsed brighter, and far above them, the floating city of Nova Cirrus was embraced by a rainbow, the first natural one seen in decades. Sometimes, Vega thought, the biggest heists weren't about what you took, but what you set free.